What does it mean to be a lucky quarterback? It doesn't mean he isn't good or even great, but it does mean that things out of his control disproportionately work greatly to his benefit. On average, a quarterback spends half of a football game on the bench, while the defense is out there for the other half, trying to make life easier for him and for the offense as a whole. Some QBs have had it way better than others on this front, and today we're going to be identifying them as we count down the 25 luckiest quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era. And we will be doing this by using C-Score, this channel's metric for evaluating every single NFL team during the Super Bowl era. More specifically, we will be using defensive C-Score. For a deeper explanation for how all this works, be sure to check out the description of this video. Here's how we're gonna do it. First, we identify every team's primary quarterback for a season. That's done by taking whoever threw the most passes, pretty simple. Then we take the team's defensive C-Score for that season. The higher that number, the more the quarterback benefits. Then we add them all up for that QB's career. A simple example can be found in Scott Hunter. He was the primary QB for the 1971 Packers, the 72 Packers, and the 77 Falcons. The defensive C-scores for those teams add up to 24.216. Beneficial, yes, but not nearly enough for the top 25. Thank you for joining us today. We're ready to roll. We start out at number 25 with a quarterback who only has 2 primary seasons during the Super Bowl era, Earl Morrall. It should be noted that he has other such seasons before 1966, as do some other quarterbacks we're going to see later, that will not apply here because we are only looking at the Super Bowl era. Those 2 seasons were enough, though, to give Morrall a total defensive C-score of 48.323. It's not just any 2 seasons, though. Morrall got to pilot the offensive ship for 2 of the greatest teams of all time in any era, the undefeated Super Bowl champion 1972 Miami Dolphins and the 1968 Baltimore Colts, who were only an upset loss away from potentially claiming the title of the best team of the entire Super Bowl era. And in both of these seasons, he got to be the starter because of injuries. Talk about right place, right time, as both teams cleared 20 points in defensive C-score, providing Morrall a luxury most quarterbacks can only dream of. We move from the early days of the Super Bowl era to the current day. At number 24 is Buffalo Bills starting quarterback and the reigning NFL MVP, Josh Allen. Allen just completed his 7th consecutive season as the Bills' primary QB, during which time his defenses have accumulated 48.721 points of defensive C-score. Allen has never exactly had a juggernaut defense behind him, with the 2021 Bills scoring highest at just under 14 points. But he has also never been with a defense that has registered a negative score. Interestingly, the 2 lowest scores belong to the 2020 and 2024 units at around 2.5 and 3.5 points respectively, and those are the 2 seasons where the Buffalo Bills as a team have advanced the furthest in the playoffs. They simply just keep getting blocked by the Chiefs and once by the Bengals. We remain firmly in the modern era at number 23 with current Baltimore Ravens starting quarterback Lamar Jackson. The 2-time NFL MVP has held this position for the past 6 seasons running, and despite 1 fewer season than Allen, his defense has given him a total defensive C-score of 54.28. And also just like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson has never had any season where he played with a defense that churned out a negative C-score, although it must be said that the 2021 unit barely scraped out a positive number. He did get one borderline juggernaut though in 2023, with their score pushing 18 points, and that defense did its part in the playoffs, particularly in the AFC title game against the Chiefs. The Ravens have had the quality to make and win Super Bowls, they just need to stop getting upset so much in the playoffs, this going back to the 2019 season. It's time to dial back the clock again to the beginning of the Super Bowl era with our number 22 entry, Bart Starr. A member of the Green Bay Packers since 1956 and a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Starr got in 4 primary seasons during the Super Bowl era, registering a defensive C-score of 54.617. During the first 2 seasons of the Super Bowl era, Bart Starr's defense handed him more than 47 points in combined defensive C-score, near 20 points in 67 and around 27.5 in 66. The other 2 seasons, 1968 and 1970, combined for around 7.5 points, including a negative season in the latter. In 1966 and in 1967, the Green Bay Packers were Super Bowl champions. In 1968 and 1970, they had losing records and missed the playoffs. Geez, it's almost as if having a good or a great defense might be important or something. In 21st place is our second consecutive Hall of Famer, John Elway. A rare breed in that he played his entire career for one team despite being drafted by another, Elway was the primary quarterback for the Denver Broncos every single season of his 16-year career from 1983 to 1998, during which time his team's defensive C-score is 54.919. Elway's second season in the league in 1984 provided him his best defense, with their C-score coming in at over 17 points. Their Super Bowl winning seasons weren't quite at that level, but they do rank as his 3rd and 6th highest scoring seasons. It wasn't always this good for Denver though, as 5 of these 16 seasons resulted in negative defensive C-scores, none worse than the dreadful 1994 unit that was pushing a negative 12. It is worth noting that all 5 of those negative seasons resulted in non-winning seasons and 0 playoff appearances. They say it always comes in threes. Our number 20 entry gives us our 3rd consecutive Hall of Famer, Brett Favre. After his rookie season with Atlanta, Favre served as a primary QB for 19 consecutive seasons, 16 with the Green Bay Packers, 1 with the Jets, and 2 with the Vikings. Those seasons brought forth a combined defensive C-score of 55.975. The best defense that Brett Favre had in his career by far came with the 1996 Packers. They cleared 20 points that season, and wouldn't you know it, they won the Super Bowl. He received the benefit of 14 out of 19 seasons with positive C-scores, but outside of the 96 team, none of the rest made it to double digits. In fact, only 6 of them even cleared 5 points. Of the 5 seasons where his defense performed in the negative, none were worse than 2004, where they dipped below -7. The average defensive C-score Favre received over those 19 seasons was under 3 points. We take our leave of Hall of Famers for now as we find James Harris in the 19th spot. Harris played 10 seasons in the AFL and NFL, but was only the primary quarterback in 4 of these, 3 with the Los Angeles Rams and 1 with the San Diego Chargers. Yet, those 4 seasons handed him a total defensive C-score of 56.232. This channel has covered the snake-bitten nature of the LA Rams for the first decade or so of the Super Bowl era, and Harris was very much a part of that. All 3 seasons he spent with them yielded not just positive, but double-digit defensive C-scores, and just for good measure, so too did his 1 season in San Diego in 1997. 1975 proved the most fruitful of these with a score pushing 21 points, while the quote-unquote lowest of these came the next season at just over 11. Hall of Fame time again. At number 18 is Johnny U himself, Johnny Unitas. A member of the Baltimore Colts since 1956, Unitas' career in the Super Bowl era started with him already well into his 30s, during which time he gets the primary nod in 5 seasons, culling together a defensive C-score of 57.737. Those 5 seasons came in between 1966 and 1971, but do not include the 68 season that we covered previously with Earl Morrall. So while Unitas missed out on that particular bonanza of points, he still saw plenty of benefits. All 5 of those seasons came with positive C-scores, including 3 in the double digits, with a high of over 20 for the 71 season. The funny thing is, the lowest C-score during this time came in at around 2.3 points in 1970, when the Colts won a very odd Super Bowl during a very odd season. He's always had the defensive support necessary, but the Unitas lore still rings true even 50 years after he played his final game. It took a while, and in fact took till after his passing, but our number 17 entrant eventually made the Hall of Fame. This is Ken Stabler. After waiting a few years, Stabler became the Oakland Raiders' primary quarterback for 7 seasons, before spending 2 each with the Houston Oilers and the New Orleans Saints. Those 11 seasons handed him a total defensive C-score of 60.561. And from those 11 seasons, 9 of them yielded a positive C-score, with the best coming in 1973 at around 16.4. The only problem that season was running into an even better defense in the Miami Dolphins. The only other season with a double-digit score came in the Raiders' Super Bowl winning season of 1976. 1979, his final with Oakland, provided a C-score of just under 0, while his final season with Houston in 1981 was the worst support he ever got, with a negative 3.6 and change. Small spoiler alert, Stabler is the only left-handed quarterback to make this list. You know, I could have sworn he was a Hall of Famer, but I looked it up and it turns out he's not. At number 16, we have the 1969 NFL MVP Roman Gabriel. Gabriel's first 4 seasons with the Los Angeles Rams predated the Super Bowl era, but once he got there, he had 7 more with them and 3 with the Philadelphia Eagles, nailing down a total defensive C-score of 61.371. Before James Harris with the Rams, it was Roman Gabriel, potentially proving that the act of being snakebit is contagious. Those first 6 seasons all brought forth positive C-scores, all higher than 5, with 4 in the double digits and 1 just missing at around 9.8. 1968 just edged out 1967 as the best of these. The last season in LA and 2 of his 3 seasons with Philly were negative though, including a ghastly C-score of around negative 17.5 in 1973. Had Gabriel retired as a Ram after the 1972 season, he would have moved up to 12th on this list. He too wasn't voted in on the first ballot, but our number 15 entry eventually got into the Hall of Fame as well. This is lifelong Miami Dolphin Bob Griese. He joined Miami 1 season after their birth in 1966 and remained until 1980. 12 of those 14 seasons were spent as their primary QB, during which time his defenses handed him a C-score of 63.023. Thanks to a broken leg, one of the seasons Griese missed out on was 1972, Miami's undefeated season, where he gave way to Earl Morrall. But he got an even bigger output from the 1973 team that also won the Super Bowl despite not going undefeated, landing a defensive C-score of over 25. 9 out of Griese's 12 seasons were positive, all coinciding with the arrival of head coach Don Shula and their move into the NFL in 1970. The 3 negative C-scores came from the AFL days, including a low of negative 13.7 and change in 1967. Without those seasons, Griese's ranking would have risen all the way to 8th. We've got another quarterback who replaced Roman Gabriel at number 14. This is Ron Jaworski. Although he played for 4 teams, Jaworski only ever achieved primary status with the Philadelphia Eagles in 10 consecutive seasons between 1977 and 1986. These 10 seasons saw the Eagles land a total defensive C-score of 63.878. In replacing Gabriel, Jaworski got a much better shake, receiving a positive C-score from his defense in 9 out of 10 seasons, including his first 5. The best of these was in 1980, when the Eagles made their first ever Super Bowl, pushing a C-score of 18. They remained in the mid-double digits the next season as well. Their only negative score was around a negative 6.7 in 1982. But they rebounded for the rest of Jaworski's time there, not scoring anything higher than an 8, but never again dipping into the negative either. This is the midway point of our countdown at number 13, and here we find yet another Hall of Famer in Roger Staubach. Despite only one season as Dallas' primary quarterback before his 30th birthday, Staubach served in that role for 8 seasons overall, notching a total defensive C-score of 65.203. The Cowboys' original heyday was basically the first 20 seasons of the Super Bowl era, and Staubach was right there for the middle portion of it. Naturally, all 8 seasons with Staubach saw positive defensive C-scores, with 3 in double digits. 1978 brought home the highest score at just over 15, a season where the Cowboys lost the Super Bowl. They had 2 more double-digit scores, but neither were in their Super Bowl winning seasons of 1971 and 1997, with both of those seasons pushing 8. Staubach's lowest level of support came in his final season of 1979 at just over a single point. Coming in at number 12 is 6-time Pro Bowler Donovan McNabb. He was the Eagles' primary quarterback for the entire decade of the 2000s, before spending the 2010 season in that same role for the Washington Redskins. From those 11 seasons came forth a total defensive C-score of 66.454. From the moment that McNabb locked down his spot under center with the Eagles, he's been supported by an above-average defense, the only exception being during the team's downturn in 2005. 3 different seasons saw them land in the double digits, including 2007, their Super Bowl appearance in 2004, and 2001, where they topped out near 18 points. McNabb's lone season in Washington was also in the negative, but not as low as the near negative 6.5 from that 2005 Philly team. In all, he received a positive C-score in 9 out of 11 seasons, with all but 2 of those higher than a 5. We've only had one jump in C-score of more than 5 points through the last entry, but now we've had our second. Coming in at 11th place is Hall of Famer Troy Aikman. Spending his entire career with the Dallas Cowboys as part of their second heyday, Aikman racked up 12 seasons as their primary QB, while their defenses racked up a total defensive C-score of 74.714 points. From those 12 seasons, Aikman suffered a negative C-score from his defense in his first season of 1989 and his last season of 2000. Everything else in between was all positive, including 5 consecutive seasons of double-digit scores, not so coincidentally coinciding with Dallas's 3 Super Bowl championships. The highest of these came in 1992, the first of those Super Bowl titles, with a score pushing 16.5. Those 2 negative seasons were a drag though, both clearing -8, with the 2000 season bottoming out at nearly -9. We've entered the top 10, and taking that 10th spot is yet another Hall of Famer, Len Dawson. After barely playing in the NFL for his first 5 seasons, Dawson joined the Chiefs' AFL franchise, then known as the Dallas Texans, in 1963. There he remained until 1975, gathering 8 seasons as their primary QB, with his defense gathering 77.645 points in defensive C-score. The first 7 of those seasons only brought forth positive C-scores for Dawson. It was in 1974 where the Chiefs' defense registered a negative 3.2 and change. 3 times they racked up double-digit C-scores, including back-to-back seasons in the 23 range during 1968 and 1969. 69 was the season the Chiefs won the final AFL title and the Super Bowl, but the 68 team indeed squeaked out a higher C-score by around 4/5 of a point. Prior to 1974, Dawson saw an average defensive C-score in the double digits. His average still settled well into the high 9 range. The jumps in C-score keep coming. At number 9, we get our first jump of double digits with Craig Morton, the only individual on this list to neither make a Pro Bowl nor win a Super Bowl in the primary role. Morton still had quite the support over his 11 seasons, split between the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, and Denver Broncos, nabbing an overall defensive C-score of 87.919. Morton's tenure with the Giants did him little favors, providing him the only 2 negative C-scores he received over those 11 seasons, and his lowest positive score. He hit double digits once with Dallas in 1970 alongside a 9.9, but he truly made his hay with the Orange Crush defense in Denver. His first season with them in 1977 yielded a Super Bowl appearance behind a defensive C-score pushing 24 points. 2 more double-digit scores followed, undoubtedly providing Morton with more career longevity than he would have had otherwise. The 8th place spot for the luckiest quarterbacks of the Super Bowl era belongs to 2-time Pro Bowler Phil Simms. His entire 15-year career was spent with the New York Giants, during which time he accumulated 11 seasons as their primary QB. Big Blue racked up a defensive C-score of 89.47. Simms' first 2 seasons in the league each provided a negative return, bottoming out in 1980 with a defensive C-score near negative 15. The arrow only pointed up after that. A big turnaround in 1981 brought that score to around 14.6, the first of 5 in double digits. Included there are 2 Super Bowl winning teams, more than 23 in 1990 and more than 24 in 1986. And yes, while Simms did not start Super Bowl 25 after the 90 season, he still served as the Giants' primary quarterback that year. Those 9 consecutive seasons of positive C-scores, following the 2 negative scores, propelled Simms to the edge of 90 points. But it's now that we break the 90-point barrier with our number 7 entry, Joe Flacco. Flacco has now played for 5 teams, serving as the primary quarterback for 3, including 11 with the Baltimore Ravens, 1 with the Denver Broncos, and 1 with the Cleveland Browns. Those 13 seasons have given him a total defensive C-score of 95.629. And those 11 seasons with the Ravens, by definition, provide ample opportunity for positive C-scores, and that's exactly what he got in 10 of them. They hit double digits 4 times, with the top 3 all within a half point of each other in the 15 range during 2008, 2010, and 2018. Even his seasons with Denver and Cleveland generated all positive C-scores, giving him a success rate of 12 out of 13 seasons. Only the 2015 Ravens went into the negative, just clearing a score of -4. Interestingly, the 2012 Ravens, their only Super Bowl championship during this time period, wasn't one of the stronger entries at 3.7 and change. Fluke's gonna fluke. Edging ahead of Flacco for 6th place is the one and only Jim McMahon. He is the only player on this list to serve as the primary quarterback for 4 different teams. 6 seasons with the Chicago Bears, and 1 season each with the San Diego Chargers, Philadelphia Eagles, and Minnesota Vikings. Still, from just these 9 seasons, McMahon's defenses served up a total defensive C-score of 96.353. And of course, the bulk of that came with the indomitable 1985 Chicago Bears, nearly 1/3 of his entire total in fact. But it's not like McMahon didn't see great benefits in other seasons as well, landing a positive C-score 8 times with 3 more double-digit scores, including his 1 season with the Eagles. It was only in McMahon's rookie season of 1982 that his team went into the negative, with that season's Bears dipping right below negative 3.6. He hits the rarefied air of averaging a double-digit defensive C-score over the course of his entire career. We've entered the top 5 at number 5, where we find the still active Russell Wilson. He has been his team's primary QB every year he has been in the league. 10 seasons with the Seattle Seahawks, 2 with the Denver Broncos, and 1 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. From those 13 seasons, he has garnered a defensive C-score of 98.053. Russ sure picked the right time to enter the league and the right team to enter it with. From 2012, his rookie season, through 2015, Seattle led the league in fewest points allowed in every one of those seasons. Through his first 5 seasons, Seattle had a low of nearly 12.3 and a high of just about 24.6 in defensive C-score, accomplished in their Super Bowl winning season of 2013. Future seasons were less fruitful, with no more double-digit scores and 3 in the negative, the worst of these being with the 2023 Broncos, who fell below negative 7. 377 different quarterbacks qualified for inclusion on this list. 373 failed to hit positive triple digits. We've now arrived at the 4 who have, and at number 4 is Hall of Famer and the single worst sports analyst of all time, which is really saying something, Terry Bradshaw. He spent his entire 14-year career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, serving as the team's primary QB in 12 of them, with a total defensive C-score of 113.606 landing in his lap. And consider this, one of the seasons he missed out on was 1974, Pittsburgh's first Super Bowl championship. 10 of Bradshaw's 12 seasons saw positive defensive C-scores, with his first 2 seasons in the league landing in the negative 4 range. Pittsburgh hit double digits 5 times for him, including 1972, 1976, and the other 3 Super Bowl winning seasons. 1976 actually tops the list by less than half a point over 1975, with both landing over 24. Bradshaw's final 3 seasons were still positive, but all fell below 5. Suppose that just might be why they fell out of Super Bowl contention. We're at the medal stand now. Our bronze medalist for luckiest quarterback of the Super Bowl era goes to Hall of Famer Joe Montana. Montana served in the primary role for the San Francisco 49ers between 1981 and 1990, then gave it a go for 2 seasons with the Kansas City Chiefs. Over those 12 seasons, Montana's defenses racked up a defensive C-score of 115.175. In 1982, the NFL only played 9 games, and the 49ers never got out of the gates. Their defensive C-score that season was just under negative 7.5. In no other season during Montana's 9 did that C-score ever drop below a 6. Out of the remaining 9, 6 were in double digits, and 2 more were above 9, with a high of over 20 during the 4th of 4 Super Bowl championships in 1989. Montana kept up the positive support in Kansas City, although not nearly at the same level. He doesn't quite hit a double-digit average for his career, but he does reach that level solely as a 49er. With a jump of 12.5 points, our silver medalist for luckiest quarterback of the Super Bowl era goes to likely future Hall of Famer Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben knew only one team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he served as their primary quarterback for 17 seasons. In that time, the Steelers' defense conjured a total defensive C-score of 127.668. These are the Steelers we're talking about. Excellent defense simply comes with the territory. 15 out of Roethlisberger's 17 seasons landed in the positive, with blips coming only in 2013 and 2014, with scores landing in the negative 3 range. 7 of those 17 positive seasons were in the double digits, with a high of nearly 22 in Pittsburgh's Super Bowl winning campaign of 2008. However, only one of those double-digit seasons arrived during the latter half of his tenure from 2012 onward, when the Steelers simply weren't at the same level of contention as they had previously been. Be honest, was there really any doubt here whatsoever? Our gold medalist for luckiest quarterback of the Super Bowl era easily goes to Tom Brady. Prior to this entry, our largest jump in C-score between any two entries was around 15.5 points, from Russell Wilson in 5th to Terry Bradshaw in 4th. Our jump from 2nd to 1st is by nearly 76 points. That's just wow. It took going through 373 QBs to get to 100 points. It took just 3 more to get to 200. Over 21 seasons, 18 with the Patriots and 3 with the Buccaneers, Tom Brady checks in with support from his defense to the astonishing tune of 203.553 points of defensive C-score. Over those 21 seasons, take a guess as to how many were negative. There were 0 such seasons. That's right, Tom Brady went 21 for 21 in having above average defenses. 10 of those seasons, just less than half, were in the double digits. Out of the 7 Super Bowl winning seasons, 6 were in the double digits, with the highest coming at over 20 in 2004. The only Super Bowl winning season they didn't hit double digits was 2018, and all they did was turn in the greatest defensive performance in Super Bowl history, holding a team that averaged 33 points per game in the regular season to just 3. Only 5 times in his career did his team's defensive C-score even dip below a 5. Yes, there's a lot of longevity here, but he still outscored Ben Roethlisberger by nearly 76 points with just 4 extra seasons. In 4 extra seasons, he outscored Peyton Manning by almost 175 points. With just 2 extra seasons, he outscored Brett Favre by 147 points, and with those same 2 extra seasons, he outscored Drew Brees by over 235 points. No quarterback in the entire Super Bowl era has even come close to the amount of support that Tom Brady has received, and he is by leaps and bounds the Super Bowl era's luckiest quarterback. Let's now give a quick look to what the top 25 would look like if we took these quarterbacks' average score over the course of their careers, with a minimum of 5 primary seasons. Anyone with an asterisk by his name did not make the top 25 for total score. The new names here include Patrick Mahomes, Cordell Stewart, Trent Dilfer, Jake Delhomme, and Chad Pennington. We move further down the list where these average seasons swell from 5 to 8 points. Our highest rated individual who didn't make the main top 25 is hilariously Bill Munson, who spent 5 seasons as the primary QB of the Detroit Lions during the late 1960s and the early 1970s. Only 2 quarterbacks managed a double-digit average for their careers: Jim McMahon over 9 seasons and Johnny Unitas over 5, the 2 of them combining for exactly 2/3 of Tom Brady's 21 seasons. Yes, Brady only finishes 4th here, but an average of nearly 9.7 over 21 seasons, compared to a couple of 12-season runs and a bunch of others in the single digits, is still quite the sight to behold. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. We decided to go with a top 25 for this one instead of our standard top 10 in order to provide a bigger picture. Make sure to give the video a like, share it around, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and ding that bell to be notified about all our future releases. Let me know what you think about all of this. I'm sure I will be called a hater by some. And hey, there's nothing I can do about that. I have no personal stake in this. I'm a 49er fan, and Joe Montana came in third on this list. If you are in that camp though, is there someone else that you truly believe should be in the number 1 spot? If you're not in that camp, is there someone else you think should be in the number 1 spot? Is there anyone who got a bad rap here? Someone who shouldn't have made this list? Someone else who should have made the list? Sound off on these topics or anything else you may have on your mind down in the comments section below. Thank you once again for joining us today, and until next time, I hope you have an awesome day.